about ethnography. And today we also have a very special guest amongst us. We have Professor Rahul Sheth from IIM Nagpur. So he has come all the way from Nagpur to meet with Professor Belk for some research discussions. And it's really an honor for us to host you, to have you. And I hope that we'll be having a very good interactive sessions once the lectures are over. Thank you.
Welcome again, and good to see you all. If you worked in your groups last night, that's great. You may not all be staying in the same place, so that may be difficult. But obviously, a lot of this project needs to be done outside of class, and that's something because we just have the morning today that you'll have an opportunity to begin with the afternoon to carry on. Yeah. So, ethnography is the topic today, unless there's any carryover questions from yesterday. I guess not. And I don't have a lot in terms of slides. We have a couple of exercises that we'll do in class today. But let me just give you a little it's going ahead without my desire for it to do that. Ethnography started maybe in the late 1990s when Rob Kosnitz began his dissertation, and he was studying Star Trek, American television series, very popular, and he wanted to find out what people were thinking, and so he joined some local fan organizations and participated in those, but he also started to look online to see what people were saying about Star Trek and the degree to which they were believers in Star Trek and its philosophy. So he was early on not realizing it, he hadn't given it the name ethnography, really doing ethnography in the 1990s. He may not have been the only one, but he's the one that came up with this term. And the term ethnography, whoops, I guess it's already on this slide, is sort of a combination of internet or network and ethnography. And his idea initially was just as an ethnographer might study a particular community and go out and be with this set of people, we can do the same thing with online groups. And so he was initially saying that this is a way to find groups online, fan groups, for example, who are interested in a particular topic or interested in Star Trek, the series, for example. And you can get valuable information that way. And so here was an article in Journal of Marketing that in 2019, was looking at all of these particular brands. You may be familiar with some of them and not familiar with others of them. But this was an article that was jointly written by Scow, Muniz, and Arnold. That's the same Eric Arnold that we talked about yesterday. And they each took a subset of these brands and followed them online and looked at what people were saying about them, and then demonstrated how this had implications for understanding the brands, understanding the change in the brand's reputation, and looking at managerial implications. They also combined that with some participant observation, and so they went and looked at behavior online, and they also looked at real behavior, followed up with people. And this is something that you might well do in ethnography. Start following it online and see if you can take those people offline to do a remote interview, for example, or even to get in touch with physically, face-to-face. And so ethnography does not mean that you can only access people through the computer or your other digital devices. It's going ahead of me again. I think I timed this at one point. But it also means that you can combine it with other ways of gathering data that are not online. So this was an example from a book that Rob Kosnitz and Eileen Fisher and I did. And so it's going back to 2011, but it's looking at the combination of big data and ethnography. So big data is trying to find through automatic processes what people are doing online and to do a sentiment analysis, for example. And so here the sentiment is from dislike and hate to like and love. And going from left to right, we're increasing the passion. And so rather than just disliking something, you're hating it. Rather than just liking something, you're loving it. And so this was mined online. And this was in 2011 in June, which is a time that Father's Day occurs in the West. It occurs different times in different countries. And also it was a time that people were graduating from high schools and universities. And one common gift would be a watch. And so it was looking at conversations about watches. And it identified all of these particular watches as well as others that had lesser attention. And the size of the circle here indicates the amount of attention, the buzz that is occurring online. And so Rolex got a lot of comments. Movado, I don't even know what Movado watches are, got a little bit. And you can see from going to left to right the intensity of comments. People were very passionate about swatches. They loved it or hated it, for example. You can also see vertically the overall positive at the top versus negative at the bottom. So Timex got a lot of bad comments, Taikur got a lot of positive comments, and everyone else sort of in between. So this is a first blush, automatic, big data analysis of the watch market. However, natural language processing may still have problems with someone who says, for example, this watch is ridiculously, outrageously awesome. Now, is that a positive comment or a negative comment? It has some negative expressions in it. Still going ahead of me. But it's meant to be a positive comment. You could further segment and say, I only want to look at comments that occurred between this date and that date, or only ones that are extreme love and hate relationship, or I want to look at the combination when multiple watches are mentioned together in comments. But the whole thing going forward from this big data is to progressively move toward smaller data. That is to say, Netnography, where we're studying in some detail individual people and individual comments. So one first blush to do that would be to look at just the positive themes. And this is showing that the most common positive theme has great quality, about a third of the people. And then if you break that out, what does great quality mean? Well, it's timeless, it's cool, it's vibrant, cute, chic, works well, and so forth. They're not all functional. Some of these are emotional sorts of reactions or categorizations of this is cool, for example, which it wants to go at its own pace today. But now what we might do is to take these positive comments and look at what individuals were saying. And so this is still from online. And here, for example, someone is saying, this is a category of bring back memories. Oh my goodness, how I loved those Swatch watches back in the 80s. I was only a teeny bopper back then, a teenager. They still look really cool to me, and the awesome thing about it is that some of them actually are affordable now. Not that I'll be running off to buy any, but and that's where it ended. So these comments are indicating how people are passionate about it. For this person, it's certainly nostalgia, looking back at a particular point in history now some 40 years ago. So these are older people, obviously. And so one thing that's a disadvantage, and we'll get to advantages and disadvantages, is that we don't really know how old these people are. We don't even know what their gender is necessarily, unless they have a name that indicates a positive or a negative comment by a man or by a woman. And so we begin to see some insights here. But well, let me ask you, what is the difference between what we're getting here and a face-to-face interview? What do we not get in one or get in the other?
We do not know the exact why behind this. So we only know, we cannot ask any probing questions or follow-up questions.
Okay.
Whatever they have told, we have to go with that. So
Okay.
we not know the reasons behind what they have liked, why they have liked.
Okay, good. So You said a couple of things there. We don't know why they said these things, what particularly brought it on, why they're mentioning it online. And we don't know necessarily, we're not able to follow up. We're not able to ask probing questions. We're not able to tell me more about that, which would be a common sort of follow-up in a face-to-face interview. And we don't know the integrity of these. Are these people telling the truth, or are they telling what they think people online would like to hear that will bring them some status in the group? Anything else that you can see that would be a difference between what we would get in a personal interview versus a netnography?
Non-verbal cues.
Okay, excellent. Nonverbal cues. People that are wrinkling up their face or going, well, I don't know, but blah, blah, blah. And all of those things are things that you can get in a face-to-face interview. And you can say, well, you were sort of wrinkling your brow when you said that. What made you do that? What are you talking about here? What are you expressing? And so we can follow up and understand the nonverbal cues as well if it's face-to-face. Anything else? Those are some of the important ones, I think. Now, here we're just looking at the positive comments that have to do with quality. We could also, sorry?
Sarcasm, it becomes difficult to know if it's sarcasm or genuine
Yeah.
with just text. If there are no smileys, so it becomes very difficult.
Again, a couple of things of what you said. We don't know if this is a sarcastic comment or not. And they don't have emojis or emoticons to follow up on and look at those as a cue to whether, this is winking and saying, yeah, not really saying this seriously. So we miss that sort of additional input as well. We could also do the same thing with negative comments. And so the most common negative comment was poor customer service. And you can see replacement issues, unhelpful, stopped at service, withdrawn all support parts, regular issues, and so forth. So it looks like a very common theme here was, while the quality of the watch may be good, the customer service when something goes wrong or you have a question about it is not very good. And so again, we could look at what people are saying. And so, well, this first one, finally my experience with the Swatch Group Service Center in New Jersey, which services all pieces from the group, I believe, is not good at all. They returned one of my watches in worse condition than when I sent it to them. Bottom line, check out in person and read as much as you can online before taking the plunge. So the plastic case, looking at the quality of the watch rather than just the service. But it also is using a line from, an old line from advertising by Timex. It takes a licking and keeps on ticking. And so it's, where did I see it? Military style watches that could take a licking and keep on ticking. And so you need to know a little bit about the prior history of advertising of watches to be able to decode that. But it's one that Timex used for years to say that their watches are durable, high quality, and you can bang on them and it's still going to keep running. So this was looking at the emoticons in this case, or emojis. And so advantages, you can get a large sample easily and quickly. Now this is one thing that you should keep in mind when you're trying to find online groups. One thing that you would like is an active online group with lots of people participating in it so you can get data fairly easily. Anything else that you would look for in trying to decide which of various online sites to pay attention to? Well, would there be a difference between what people would say on LinkedIn versus what they'd say on WhatsApp versus what they'd say on another site? Say again?
Say on Twitter. Twitter.
Twitter.
X, exactly.
Okay, so Twitter would, or X now would be one good site to look at. Instagram, things of that sort. But you probably are going to get different sorts of people and different sorts of talk. I have a slide coming up in a little bit to show you the difference between where WhatsApp is used and where Reddit is used. And those are different sorts of sites, and they have a particular characterization of how they relate to a topic that we'll look at in just a moment. So large samples are possible quickly if you choose sites that have a lot of people and a lot of activity. You'd like it to be active. You'd like the conversations to be taking place right now today to have more current information. You can do immediate analysis. You don't have to wait until you've gathered more interviews. They're all there. You can sample them at one point in time, including past points in time, archives of threads that have been discussed in the past. It's considerably cheaper than doing face-to-face interviews. In fact, it doesn't cost any more than the electricity to run your computer as you're doing the search. You don't have to transcribe, which if you've done qualitative research, you know is one of the not exciting tasks. And we're getting toward more auto transcription, but there's still problems with that. You still need to go over and proofread it at least. Sensitive topics are accessible. If people are talking about firearms in the U.S., a controversial sort of topic, or a personal hygiene topic, menstruation, or something of that sort, it's more difficult, and especially across genders, to talk to people about those intimate or sensitive topics. But online, they're free because they're anonymous. You don't know who they really are, and it's easier to. This is one common effect of going online, period, that you're less inhibited because, first of all, you're only talking to a screen with imaginary people out there. And secondly, it's anonymous, and people don't know who you are. So hopefully it's a good way to get people to open up more immediately than they might in a face-to-face interview where you have to do some rapport building. And we talked about doing the grand tour yesterday as a way to make people feel more at ease online. Historic archives are possible, as we mentioned. You can go back in time. There's also something called the Wayback Machine. If you want to know what the internet was like 10 years ago, the Wayback Machine helps you do that, but it's not perfect and it doesn't archive everything. As you can imagine, trillions of bytes of information, trilobytes, I don't know what that is, are generated every hour, every minute online. And you can't possibly, if you could archive all of that, you'd have a problem accessing all of it. It's just so much information. But the Wayback Machine at least goes in that direction. And it gets around the problem these days of survey non-responsiveness. Getting people, first of all, on the telephone is difficult, especially if you're thinking still of landlines where there may be directories. But also getting people to participate in something where they have to opt in online. It's difficult to convince people to do that as well. Now, one alternative is that you pay people to do that. But is there anything wrong with paying people? I'm not necessarily talking ethically, but do you see anything else potentially wrong with paying people? Yeah. No?
I was having a big problem with doing talking. That's why I said to lower the volume.
Slow. Okay. I will try to do that.
No, sir, no, I was telling them, sir.
Oh, okay. I see. Thank you. Anything else besides possibly ethical issues about paying people to participate in a study? Yeah.
Sir, when we will be using this, it may be used in the inductive as well as the deductive process in both ways. So can you relate that how netnography can be used in the context of deductive and inductive, both ways?
Just in broad terms, I can. If you're trying deductively, you're using an a priori model of you think what you think is going on. If you think there's a dialogue taking place with a certain trend that people follow along. In other words, once the ball starts rolling in the negative direction, other people jump onto that bandwagon. And so you have an a priori model of that, and that's what you think is happening, and you look for that in the data. On the other hand, if you're looking inductively, you're trying to make sense of this. And so we have a bunch of text, and we'll look at some in a minute, And we're trying to see how we might understand that text, what we might derive as a model of how online communication works, or how a particular innovation gets accepted or not accepted, or what's called, well, this would be another a priori model. There's something called the Gartner hype cycle, and the hype cycle is something that when a new innovation comes along and the originator, the company behind it, is trying to build momentum and fandom, that they're trying, and Apple is famous for this with their introduction, that their annual developers conferences. And Steve Jobs was really a master of this, and would use these little tricks like, oh yes, and one more fact, we have this wonderful great innovation that he surprises people with it at the end, the big payoff, the big punchline that people learn to wait for. And so if you're trying to do an inductive model, you'd look at that process of what goes on early in the demonstration, what goes on later in the presentation, and so forth. When in the early editions of the iPhone, when it was being introduced, they didn't really have the technology behind what they were trying to demonstrate. And so they had something like 128 different iPhones set up, and they had a special cell tower built right on top of the building where they were doing the research. And because they could demonstrate one app on one phone, they couldn't demonstrate other apps on the same phone. That's why they had multiple phones and backups, so that it looked smooth, but it really was chunky, and they were demonstrating technology that wasn't quite there yet. And so this is part of the hype cycle that you might try to understand in terms of, if that's what you're interested in terms of people trying to promote their innovation. But we'll come to that more later when we look at coding and analysis of data. And also abductive reasoning, which is the third possibility. It's neither inductive nor deductive. It is more inductive, however. So disadvantages, as mentioned, we can't identify who it is that has generated this comment necessarily. And even if they've self-identified as male or female, that may not be accurate either. Also, there may be people that have been hired to go online and spread news about a particular product. They're trying to build buzz, and there are companies that specialize in hiring people or lending out people to do that. It's not everywhere on the internet, it's not all the time, but you can't really judge whether this is a paid comment or a sincere comment that has arisen from the people themselves. As mentioned, we lose the intangibles, tone of voice, silences, and so forth. You can compensate to some degree, as mentioned, with emoticons and emojis. The reliability and integrity of the information we can't really assess online. And simply information overload. There's so much information out there that we'll probably have to sample in order to make sense of it, and in order to begin to do netnography on a small group of people rather than just rely on the big data picture that we might start with. And remember, we're talking about the interface between big data and small data here. So the process of netnography, and I guess at the bottom I mentioned that you should compensate for some of these disadvantages by using multiple methods, going offline and gathering data observations and interviews, participation, participant ethnography, and autoethnography. Yeah?
I think the advantage the disadvantage of integrity is not true, I guess, because when they are speaking about something online, so there are no external pressure to them. So
Right.
if suppose I have visited some place and I am feeling something about it and I'm putting it online, I would be very, very honest towards that. So, but when someone is taking my interview and asking questions, so I would be more afraid of why should I reveal it, why they are asking this question. So the integrity thing could also be eliminated when they are putting it online.
Okay, so an emphasis for greater integrity because you don't feel any pressure, you're not being judged, or if you are, you're being judged anonymously, and that's not going to affect you personally. Others react to that. Are you commenting on?
Yeah, I would like to add to what she said. It's partially true because sometimes we have seen that, say, for example, an hotel owner, they may ask their known circles to make some positive comment in response to a negative comment which is posted,
Okay.
say,
So,
about a particular hotel.
so this may be an
Question of
intentional
integrity
higher,
comes.
or not higher, but a friendly review that is
Yeah,
saying,
if there is a non-friendly review, just to tackle that, I may ask my known friends to just counter it by making some good suggestions about my coffee joint or restaurant.
okay. And there's also trolls online, people that are doing the
my
opposite.
view is, but still integrity could be at question because if you are not liking something, say for example, I am not liking the food of my guest house, assume, then I start talking about the course, program, you, everyone, right, negatively. It could happen, out of frustration, out of to prove my point kind of things, which may not be, and that also a question of integrity.
And it may be because you got bad service for some reason, something that you'd asked for took a long time to get there, but it wasn't unanimous.
But that does happen both when you go for online, this kind of netnography or physically you interview, that human cycle.
Right.
That is universal. Integrity is at stake universally, whether you are online or offline, face to face, wherever.
Okay, is that a hypothetical example, or did you have a bad food experience at the guest house? I had very good service.
No, I'm enjoying.
Okay. So, there's problems, plus and minus for integrity. On the one hand, the veneer of being able to take your time and not be judged and so forth may get greater honesty. On the other hand, it may be that one person sets off a whole set of responses and it looks out of proportion negative, when in fact those people, by and large, were sort of neutral, but they were swung over by this comment. Not that that doesn't happen face to face. It could happen in that context as well, but it can be more explosive online.
Usually the human tendency is if I like something, I don't speak about it. But if I don't like something, then I start commenting, abusing, put reviews, views, and all these things.
I would differ with that a little bit. I think what gets talked about is very bad experiences and very good experiences. It's the neutral ones in the middle that people don't talk about because it's not really newsworthy. If you see a new movie, Bollywood movie maybe, and it's really great, you can talk about it to people. If it's really terrible or there's an aspect of it that's terrible, you can talk about it. But in the middle, it's not so newsworthy. So, slight difference.
But ethnography is not just about online reviews. It is
Yeah.
much more than what is happening within the community, where people share about not just their experiences, but why they like a particular hobby or what do they do, what kind of activities.
Yeah, when we get to coding, I'll show you some transcripts of coffee lovers. And they go into the minutest detail of talking about how this is roasted and which machines, and they use vocabulary that you may not initially understand. You need to become a part of the community in order to decode what is being said online. So those are additional sorts of issues. I didn't mention when I was showing the cover of Rob's latest edition of his book, I think 2024, last year, that he started out looking at existing communities online, and he also made it a point to get permission to do research on that group, to talk to the webmaster or whoever was in charge and see if it was okay. Now he's sort of backed away from that and said we can use additional techniques and tools online. Besides finding an existing group, we can find more scattered opinions. And if it's a public website, we don't need to be accepted into the website in order to participate. We don't need to get permission. That this is public information that people have put up online. Even if it's people that are doing this commercially, like on YouTube, they have a channel, something of that sort. We don't need to get permission. But we do need to still follow ethical procedures by disclosing that we're a researcher. once we begin to interact with people, that would be the point. We're trying to get them from online to offline to do a follow-up interview. So at that point, at least, we need to disclose we're researchers, what we're researching, who we are, and so forth. Yeah.
So doesn't it depend upon the emotions and the sentiments? Like, for example, somebody had a bad day, the earlier day, and when he's being interviewed, and he kept on saying the outrageous words. Maybe first few questions he wasn't having a very good feelings about that, and that feelings, that outburst manifested into that particular thing. But when you're having face-to-face interactions, you get to know, you get to understand the pulse of the particular candidate or particular participant, then you open him up slowly and gradually, rather than forcing him to, rather than pushing him up. Rather.
Yeah, there's techniques we can do to sort of gradually build trust. Someone is talking about they're evaluating a hospital or a doctor, and they're saying this was the worst hospital possible, that they don't care about their patients, they leave them alone, the food is terrible, and so forth. And it turns out they had an uncle that died in the hospital, and everything seemed to go wrong. They were experiencing not just a bad day, but a bad day with this particular relative in their experience. And that's what they're basing this on, and they don't necessarily disclose that in their comments. They're just generalizing about the hospital. This is a bad hospital, it's a terrible place. So online, you don't know that. Offline, you can see, I can tell this is really emotional for you. And you can sort of say, well, let's come back to this particular instance later. You can see the nonverbal, you can read things into the tone of voice, and you can work around that. You can try to be sympathetic. You can say, well, I understand. Again, you're not agreeing or disagreeing with necessarily what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, and I think this is what I understand you to be saying. So yeah, there's a number of things we can do online, but we can't do everything. Offline, we can do many more things to try to get good information. So those were advantages and disadvantages. It moves without me, and now it doesn't want to move at all. This is almost identical for different methods of gathering qualitative data. But the steps are we sort of plan what we're going to do. We have maybe a research question in mind, or maybe it's very exploratory, we've yet to formulate it. You gain entree, and nowadays public sites don't require you to do much more than sign an end-user license agreement, a EULA, which says anything that you do online is their property, and you don't have a right to it any longer. You gather the data, which can be not just text, but also people have visual information that they've posted, oral information, sound bites that they've created online. And so it's not necessarily just words that we're mining or looking for in ethnography, but additional details as well. We still need to interpret coding, abstraction. We're beginning to, and this is the inductive reasoning that you're talking about, we're beginning to build a pattern of understanding. Yeah?
Yeah, Professor, many of us are using ChatGPT or Bard for our any sorts of reviews, comments, while writing comments, reviews, and while posting in LinkedIn. So how someone can go for interpretation where there is an integrity issue, reliability issue? 90-95% whatever we are writing in the AI and everything. Even in the Gmail, right, there is AI. So humans prompts are only working entire content.
Well, the honest answer is you can't fully guard against those difficulties. But some things that you can do is get people as much as possible offline. You could also say, you could post something at the particular site that you're studying. I'm a researcher, I'm trying to learn more about this. If you would be willing to talk with me for 10 minutes, which is not a lot, but enough, please contact me at this website. I'm a researcher, you can go online and see my credentials and so forth. So that would be a way of going to the site and trying to get people offline from the site that will talk to you face to face. Short of that, we looked at disadvantages. You can't do everything when you're trying to study people online. This can be one data collection technique, and there's so much, any topic that you mention. I broke a guitar string, how do I replace it? There's going to be people that are talking about that online. There's steel guitar strings versus nylon and so forth. And I'm sure there's discussions about that in almost any other topic. So almost regardless of your research interest, netnography is often, and almost always these days, the place to begin. But you're not going to be able to solve all of the drawbacks and disadvantages of netnography. So it's really a starting point more than an end point. Which is not to say that there are not studies that have been done using only ethnography that have been published. Rob Cosner's sort of, I don't want to call it empire building, but he's following ethnography to build interest, and he's getting more interest both based on industry and academia. There's a Netnocon conference that he holds every year now. The third one is going to be in Marseille in July, I think, June, July. The last one, the previous one was in Milan, and the one before that was in Manchester, either Manchester or Birmingham, I think Manchester in the UK. So it's international in scope. They have a special issue of a journal coming out on ethnography. It's building interest, and Rob logically is following his popularity in generating a number of books. He married a woman from Austria who is really a tourism researcher, but he's converted her to be an ethnographer as well. So the two of them together help do this. And the people that put on host the local Netnocon conferences are really advocates as well. So I think that's jumped. No, I guess that was where we wanted to be. So versus big data, smaller numbers but greater detail. Yes, it is subjective. It's context specific. Context being the website as well as the topic that you're talking about. Some can be more general, talking about Bollywood in general, and this con versus that con and so forth. Or it can be narrower to broader. Okay, you could follow a particular actor, and we'll show it in a minute in the context of Big Brother how that plays out. Big Boss, sorry, not. Big Brother was the name of Big Boss when it started in the UK, and it was there was a version of it, Big Brother in North America and Australia, I believe, as well under that title. But Big Boss here. It's cultural. If this is a website that's particularly Indian, or it's in Hindi, for example, there's a particular context that's an Indian context that you understand, or most of you understand. Not everyone speaks Hindi necessarily, but you need to interpret from that cultural point of view. And this can be a subcultural point of view as well, that these are young goth enthusiasts, and they have a particular look, particular way of talking, particular mentality, and so forth. And as with any community that you're studying, you need to adapt yourself to that community. So just going in, taking some data out without understanding the context can be misleading. Even if you use Google Translate to translate from one language to another, you're losing something in the process, and so that's not necessarily a solution. You were going to say something about that, or you just agreeing?
The binding of the language gets missing.
Yeah.
When we translate, it's just word-to-word translation.
Yeah, and there are certain things that just don't translate very well, and so these are limitations in trying to go across languages. Seek sites where people can actively and collectively communicate and share. There's a lot going on. People respond to one another rather than just give their own opinion. So there's self-expression, identity, and social interaction. And so those would be some of the things to look for in trying to choose a particular site. And before you choose a particular site based on what you think you're going to find there, have a look and do some comparison across particular sites. And we're going to be doing an exercise in a little bit that will allow you to do that. So what we're trying to do is to generate deep human understanding, to go beyond the sentiment analysis that the big data is performing, and to try to understand more fully than the one line or the short paragraph comments that you're getting from big data. Okay, nowadays, or in the future at least, there's also immersive ethnography. When we're doing research in the metaverse, I guess let me ask first, does the metaverse exist? You've all heard that term. Is there a metaverse out there somewhere? Well, there's fledgling metaverses and would-be metaverses, and some of them come from gaming, some of them were started up particularly to be metaverses. Some of them, like Mark Zuckerberg's announcement when he changed the name of Facebook to Meta, were having a particular purpose in mind. I'm not going to talk particularly about the metaverse, but it's interesting that just after Mark Zuckerberg announced they were changing to Meta, AI, generative AI, began to become popular, and it sort of blew away the interest in the metaverse. It hasn't gone away, but it's kind of sleeping right now. But there are some active metaverses out there, and there are billions of dollars still being made in the metaverse. We'll see some examples in just a minute, because immersive ethnography is saying, unlike involvement with two-dimensional studies of online groups on screens with permissions, webmasters, and participants, what Rob used to do, it now includes 3D immersive metaverses with AR, VR, mixed reality, extended reality, and so forth, without permission on public platforms. So these are some similarities. There are some similarities, but there are also differences. For example, when you're in a metaverse, it's not the same today as it is tomorrow, because other people are still there. This is a persistent technology. They're building things, they're adding material, and so it may not be the same as today, tomorrow. There may be also what are called time aristocracies of people who are making a lot of the content. Money aristocracies we're used to. People that have more money can buy more things online as well as offline. They can buy NFTs, for example, that they use in metaverse. But there's also time aristocracies. People who are in school, people that don't have jobs, people that are stereotypically holed away in their parents' basement or house, and are spending hours and hours and hours each day online, may have a dominant presence compared to people that have 9-to-5 jobs and to do this in the evening after they get home, something of that sort. So that's another factor to consider. You may need a headset, a virtual reality, three-dimensional headset to participate in the metaverses, or at least the fulfilled metaverse. There's also flat screen, two-dimensional versions of a three-dimensional world, but that's not quite the same. Richer data may require other media. There's a woman, Fatima Kawaf, who has a technique she calls screencasting, where using software you capture everything that the person has done online for the period that you're studying. As you can imagine, that's an enormous amount of data. So doing this for even a couple of people is going to provide lots and lots of data if you do it for a single day, much less if you do it for a week or a month. So the data input is fine, but the data output is questionable. How do you make sense of that much data? And there are methods that you could use, but it has limitations. It likely requires, if you're going to do research in the metaverse, that you have an avatar. And avatars in the metaverse are not like two-dimensional avatars where you use a mouse or your finger to generate the movement of your avatar. Rather, the metaverse uses your facial expression, your hand movements, your arm movements, and those are mirrored in your avatar. And as you can imagine, you become a little bit more attentive, rather than it's called driving it with the mouse, when you're actually being the avatar and it's mimicking you. And so that's something to consider, that people are personas. They're still avatar representations that may or may not be an accurate representation of them. And I'll show you an example in a minute. But nevertheless, it's mimicking them. It's easier to become involved. Do you know the concept of psychological possession? If you give something to someone to hold on to, they become more attached to it. If you're selling it to them, you get them to hold it or to drive it, whatever it might be, and they become more attached to it, more likely to want to hang on to it. Well, it turns out there's something similar that happens online if people are going to a website, especially if you're using a touch-sensitive screen and you're able to actually touch the screen where the object is, you become more attached. But if you're using a mouse, it's more distant, and you don't have that same degree of psychological attachment, if that makes sense. But imagine now that the avatar is mimicking you. It doesn't really get your lower body because the webcam or the camera in the VR headset is not able to see your lower torso. So a problem that Mark Zuckerberg has in his Horizon Worlds metaverse is that it just shows people, but it doesn't have arms and hands and things that connect to the body, and it only goes down to about the waist level. And so there's these half torsos floating around rather than whole people. At any rate, the avatar is there, and the researcher therefore is not invisible. You're not someone that's just asking questions in two-dimensional space. There may be also something to contend with. Non-human actors, bots, artificial intelligence, and non-player characters in a gaming context. And there may also be additional ethical considerations. You should not deceive people. You should not become too intimate with people online so that they become your partners. There are some would-be metaverses that are also pornographic, and obviously that's something you should not ethically participate in as a researcher. And so ethical questions are perhaps multiplied in the metaverse. It's not that because you're represented by an avatar, you're free from responsibility. You are your avatar, especially if it's mimicking you. The first metaverse was probably Second Life, which started in 2003, but it's two-dimensional. You create your avatar, you can do things like build homes and so forth. And this is Tom Bolstorff, an anthropologist. He was president of American Anthropological Association at the time. And he wrote a book called Coming of Age in Second Life, which is a play on the words Coming of Age in Samoa by Margaret Mead, a famous anthropologist, 30s to 50s. And so what he did was to create a house, and he would invite people to his house as if it were a party, but he would say, I'm an anthropologist, and disclose fully what he was doing, and he would interview them. And so he was participating. He created the house, he hung out at other places and so forth. He met people to invite them to his house for research purposes, and it's their avatar coming to meet his avatar. And so it's a little bit like doing research face-to-face, except it's avatar face-to-avatar face that you're able to contact and take advantage of online. I guess we could look at some particular metaverses. This is Animal Crossing that you might have run into or have on your phones or had at one point. Sort of cartoon realistic. This is Axie Infinity. Axie Infinity is enormously popular in the Philippines. There was a time before the crash of Bitcoin and the metaverse world and NFTs and so forth, which took place in 2021, 2022, really at that juncture between 2021 and 2022. People had quit their full-time jobs to play Axie Infinity to earn money as scholars, as is what they would be called. It's a very busy place, and it's fully active. That is, there are many other people that you can see there through their avatars that you can interact with as if you were interacting face to face. Whoops. There's another view of Axie Infinity. And you can, it gets more complex. You can buy different parts and so forth. You have someone who you're indentured to as a scholar. At any rate, you can participate in that. Here's another one. This is called Decentraland. It was created as a metaverse with that intention. And one of their sites online is called Vegas City. And you can see somewhere here, dirty, adults only, rated X, and so forth. This is kind of a racy, sexy sort of place. And they have other places besides Vegas World, or Vegas City. But in this case, they're planning also to have a virtual red light district. Now, even though your avatar is being mimicked by you, I'm not sure how fun virtual sex is going to be. There was an opportunity to do that in Second Life as well. At any rate, they're catering to different segments of the market. And people have paid enormous sums of money to get plots of land. I think one next to Snoop Dogg, in his plot of land that he bought here was sold for $450,000 US. And so people as well as organizations are investing in the metaverse, including Gucci, for example. This is Roblox website. They have a presence in several different websites. But yeah, here's where Snoop Dogg someone paid $450,000 for a plot next to Snoop Dogg. More than $1 billion worth of virtual real estate was sold in 2022 alone. It's three-dimensional visually, but may also include sound, smell, and body sensations with a haptic suit that you would wear potentially. This is something that, like NFTs, non-fungible tokens, and Bitcoin, for example, other cryptocurrencies, would have in common. They're jointly owned by everyone that owns a Bitcoin or a part of the Bitcoin. And so if there's a catastrophe, if there's hacking of the Bitcoin site, there's no CEO that can come on and apologize and make it right because there is no CEO. It's distributed, decentralized ownership rather than centralized. But there are many people that do now for their livings in the metaverse, and the question would be, is this the biggest investment opportunity since the internet, or is this the biggest bubble since Tulipmania? And indeed, there was a bubble burst in terms of value of Bitcoin, NFTs, and metaverses in that 2021-2022 hinge point. But Bitcoin, for example, at that point had gone from a high of $70,000 US down to below 20,000. But what's Bitcoin worth today? Anyone? It's over 100,000 US dollars. So people that double, I went to a conference in Denver, Colorado, and I took an Uber back to the airport. And my driver had a 9-to-5 weekday job, but on the weekends he drove Uber. And he built up several tens of thousands of dollars that he put into Bitcoin. And it was at the low point at that. It had dropped back down to 20,000, and he was devastated. But rather than saying, I'll never do that again, he was doubling down and investing everything that he had in Bitcoin. And it turns out that paid off for him. He's got 5 times his money that he invested at that point in time, at any rate. So not a bad investment for a bubble that burst. The value of things online can also seem out of whack. The Gucci Dionysus bee bag that looks like this sells for $3,400 in the store. On the other hand, there's a virtual Dionysus bee bag that sold for $4,100 in Gucci Gardens on Roblox. And it wasn't even an NFT. That is to say, it's not guaranteed by the blockchain. You can't port it from one virtual world to another. And so it raises a real question: why would people be that concerned with getting a fancy bag for their avatar in the metaverse? And you can probably imagine that an answer might be, well, that's me. That's a representation of me that's somewhat idealized. I probably would not wear this bag out in public. It's too flamboyant, but my avatar should have it. And so someone really invested heavily in paying that amount at auction for that bag. I mentioned that you need an avatar to do research in the metaverse and immersive netnography. Has anyone seen the movie Ready Player One, which was about the metaverse? Not very optimistic, somewhat dystopian view. But there's a company now called Ready Player Me that will create an avatar for you, and you can tweak it in various sorts of ways. So I had an avatar created, and eventually you can judge whether you think that looks like me or not. But you can be more fanciful than that as well. There's also companies that are selling things online. Here's L'Oreal and Maybelline that have teamed up with Ready Player Me. And you can get this hair look and this cosmetics look by paying for it to these companies online. You might not want to go out in public looking quite like this, but your avatar in a metaverse, which is an imaginary place, might. We looked at last time, I think, most search people. I'm going back now to big data, to the metaverse and where we might begin. And so what I'd like to show you, and we were going to use a separate computer for this, but I guess we didn't get it set up. So let me just see if I can call up these sites, for example. These are from Google Search Trends, and a place where you might begin to try to find ideas for research. I think it's coming up. Okay, you can see that if I can make it bigger. I saw my mouse a second ago. There it is. Okay, so we were searching for the past 24 hours for India, all trends. Let me change that to the past 7 days. And, okay, I would guess in cricket, Pakistan is going to play the West Indies, the West Indies. Saif Ali Khan, I take it as a Bollywood actor.
Recent one problem happened. Somebody wanted to kill him, so he was being attacked. So that is the reason so many people searched about him.
Okay, and you can see where that was. The past 7 days was almost 7 days ago. It was earlier in this period where it peaked, and then it's dropped off. The Boss, Big Boss version 18 winner was talked about. I don't know if it's something that's going to be happening in the future. It was just announced. We could, yeah, it really happened. It chose the 18th Big Boss. So that may be something that we would want to follow up on. If we click on any of these, we can see some additional information. It looks at other words that were used in conjunction with talking about Saif Ali Khan. If we go to Big Boss, we can see some of the words associated there and begin to make sense of it. 5 days ago, well, let's see. Click here. Again, we just see a more detailed picture. So you can drill into these a little bit. And what you could do would then be try to make sense of these, try to follow up, try to look for news articles, and so forth. So let me close this for a minute. And obviously this was searching for India. We could search for any different country. We could search for different time periods, different categories. We could just look at entertainment and see how that changes things. Again, Big Boss and Saif Ali Khan are both up there. Dakota Johnson, Pani movie, and so forth. But let me just go back to where did the mouse go? No. Well, let's try this. that's where we were. Let's try this one. Okay, whoops. Find that link. Okay, so this was a year ago, and Elvis Shadov, I guess, was the last Big Boss winner? Yeah? 2022? Okay, so this is old. But you can see this was between, this was in 2024, so this is last year. Right at the end of the year, something happened to his popularity, to searches for him that jumped up. And apparently, he became a very conspicuous consumer and bought fancy cars and things. People followed what happened to him after he became the Big Boss winner and so forth. So this is sort of other people's fantasy of what winning Big Boss would be like. And again, we could drill down a little bit and look at some of the trends within here, within these. We could look at school life. There was something about then versus now with Vidal, people looking at his history. We could look at more about the terms Big Boss and Tamil. There's a Tamil version apparently. Snoop Dogg, I don't know, made an appearance on Big Boss somehow. Anyway, we could look at that. We could add other topics for comparison. We could search for whoever's the current Big Boss winner and to see with different colored lines what that looks like. Again, let me go back. Well, that worked last time. Okay, so I don't want that. So this third one, this is comparing Reddit and Instagram in terms of Big Boss. I use Reddit mostly for Big Boss updates, and the people here have spot-on views regarding people, but there's a huge difference between here and Instagram. Like, I think they not much, this is Hindi, you're going to have to interpret that for me. And so he continues in Hindi, and someone down here is saying, all the people saying PR isn't just about PR, it's about the audience. YouTube has a very immature audience, and Instagram also has a very immature audience. Only Reddit is a place where there's a less immature audience. A more mature audience is what he's trying to say. So this is going to Reddit and doing a search for related sorts of topics. I think this last one is just a repeat of one of the comments that we've already looked at. So let's go beyond, well, you're not seeing that. What did I do to get back? I can't, for some reason, close this up, which I would normally do up here on the map. Oh, there it goes, okay. I was able to move my mouse more adroitly. At any rate, Reddit would be a site that you could search. Let me ask, how many people here do not have WhatsApp? No one. So WhatsApp is very common, and it may be because it's so common to you here in India, here in West Bengal, that you don't assume or look at. Let's just cancel that. That's the same comment that we had. But if we look at where it's most common, India is leading. About half of the population in India have WhatsApp. Brazil is next in line and has about the same percentage of the population that India has, so it's almost up there. Indonesia has a lot of people. U.S. has 98 million, but that's only about a quarter of the population of the U.S. Philippines has 88 million, and that's something like 3/4 of the population. So I would divide these by the population of make sense of it. But the point is, there are lots of other countries that don't have much WhatsApp, and in comparison to India. So don't assume that WhatsApp is the only game in town. On the other hand, Reddit is almost the opposite. Well, it has many fewer followers than WhatsApp. The United States has.
Could you please go back to the previous slide?
I'm sorry?
Could you please go back to the previous slide?
Sure. Yeah.
So here you are referring to the population versus the number of users. Look at the case of particularly Turkey. So 60 millions. What is the population there? Their population is something around 600. Their population is around 60 or 80 millions.
So
that almost everyone is using in Turkey.
yeah, it looks like
So I
it.
have a point here that in Turkey the percentage is high, much more high than India. India is 50%.
Okay, so India is the leader in absolute terms, but not necessarily in proportion to the population. So that would be what I was trying to hint at, that we should really put these in perspective by looking at how much of the population we're talking about here. So with Reddit, we're dealing with smaller numbers, but here, India is second, Spain and France are down at the bottom. And so we're able to make some sense of where these patterns are. And if we're trying to study one country or another, information like this can be useful. And even the comment of immaturity, I think they're talking about the age or the education, perhaps, of the people that are at these sites. And there's demographics that you could look at for what the particular site is like. Okay, let's do an exercise. And if you're with your groups, you can do this as a group. But here's some phones that I think are reasonably current phones. The Realme 14 Pro, the iPhone 16, the Samsung S24. Do some comparison of those and try to look at what people in India think about those phones, and try to see if there's a factor of country of origin that's playing into this, Korea versus the U.S. And so forth. You may find other things that come into this picture. In other words, these are reasonably high-end phones, right? And these are the flagships of these companies. How are they thought about in India? What do people, well, I'll just leave it at that. What do people think about these phones? So get together with your group and begin to try to find, we looked at what criteria we might look for in trying to find sites and trying to find people. What do people think about these phones in comparison to one another online? And what are we doing for time? Are we only going to 10:30?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's make this a 10-minute exercise. Let's see what you can find in 10 minutes, and then we'll have time for a few additional things.
So,
Yes,
I have a question, but not related to exercise.
what about?
Not related to exercise, related to
Oh, sure.
a lot of users have started sharing videos, short form, reels. What role can ethnography play in that? Because most of what we discuss is related to trends.
Right.
Most they share the videos or the content consumption has changed, evolved.
Yeah,
I had one.
and so although TikTok left India 4 years ago, they certainly promoted that short form video. So we'll talk more about that in interpretation, but for now, let's just say, let's try to make sense of those images. But let's wait until we get to interpretation of what we're going closely. Good point. Okay, so remember to be back at 10:25. That leaves just a little time for wrap up. Sorry.
This is the confirmation bias, one part of the researcher, and qualitative bias, part of the participant. Because the outlier between influencer and consumer is too large.
Yeah.
There are two types of head. One is influencer value, one is consumer value.
Right.
Both the consumer value in terms of the product, what we grow, is an independent value. But in terms of influencer, this is a dependent value. So the The problem is,
Hello?
the outlier is very large.
If you need the internet connection, the password is, just write down the password. The password is 58567302.
That's the password.
And the Wi-Fi is TP-Link D0D8. Five eight five six 7302. 58567302.
শুভজিৎ কেমন আছেন? অনেকদিন পরে দেখা হলো। দিয়ে কেমন আছেন?
Sorry, it's a subjective question. Google says, what do iPhone users take of pros improved battery life, powerful processor, versatile camera system. Audio mix. And thermal management. Close one. And constant AI and AI features. The iPhone validation, not third validation. Easy for students. So, but it influences the consumers with the
Have you put your slides up?
reliable performance, good battery life, attractive design. Number one.
What influences thing?
No, for the second question, what do you mean? For its design, performance, and camera.
Old sensitive color changing design. It shifts to where you
No, for really putting.
Yeah, and the one you
Users are searching for S24 and iPhone.
And you know,
Take only types.
even the 21 half of the population is watching. But there are a lot of it is sponsored by the government. So it's, I don't want to say it's documentary, but it's not, but it focuses on musicians, people, for example. A number of other things, but it's not like all it's not the same sort it does take place. There are also American companies that film actually yeah, there are. Okay, time is up. I'm very And for people here too, you might have heard me yelling outside, time is up, we need to come back. Like yesterday, I think we'll try to have one spokesperson per group, looking at what you found collectively in your group. Is there one more group still out there? Come back, hello, come back.
Overall comparison uses Samsung better in terms of iPhone better.
Hello, come back. It's nice to see people so involved you can't get them off of the Maybe we can start without that group that jump in when they do get back. It's hard to get you to stop this task. I guess you're deciding what you're going to say. Take a minute while we get this last group in. You're persuasive. Good. You got them.
Too much taxing.
Yes, but it's good to see this engagement. Good. Okay, very quickly, don't try to summarize everything that you found, but just the highlights. Influencers, consumers, each of these phones, country of origin. Okay, which group would like to go first? Are you going to present? No.
Okay.
Okay. Just the highlights.
That's okay, I believe, without time. With the limited curiosity of, that's okay. With the curiosity of time, we could not do all activities. We did only probably 2 or 3. What we did, we went to Amazon website and looked at the real users and buyers review. And one question, it was one among the questions, iPhone 16 Pro, what is the review? We got, there are a large number of buyers in last year and recently. The review comment says 4.1 out of 5 kind of things, and 4 highlight areas of camera, which people are talking good about camera quality, picture quality, design and battery life. And but still people are reviewing at 4.1 out of 5. We could dig deeper into and find more insights. We could not do
Amazon India site.
yeah, Amazon India particularly. Yeah, not the global one. Right. So that was it. And since the customers, they have given their name and details, you could reach them and find more details. And the other one, we looked at the Realme 14 Pro. There are a lot of negative reviews, videos, display issues, touchscreen problem, the service problem, poor product knowledge. Kind of there's a lot of service comment on this Realme 14 Pro, and we could dig deeper into how the company is looking at and kind of things, right? And we looked at other data also. Yeah, we looked at the country of origin and that impact actually Indian mind. Chinese anti-sentiment Chinese products. Chinese.
Indian users usually don't prefer Chinese made in China products.
That's the insight you get, right? Thank you.
Similar information on this site? Could you go to flip chart?
No, sir, we couldn't.
Okay. Next group, who would like to present next? This group seems particularly active. Would you like to come up? No? Yeah, okay, good.
So we have done only few questions. Like first was what Indian influencers think of the Realme 14 smartphone. So brand ambassador, as it was launched by the Shahrukh Khan, and the social media influencers like Dolly Singh and Komal Pandey were there, and mostly they promoted the phone using the camera quality, enhanced performance, battery life, and the enhanced features of the phone. When Indian consumers think of the smartphones, they like this as it is budget friendly for Indian consumers. And we did it from the Amazon reviews from the customers, what they have posted over there. Then iPhone 16 users think of it. They like it like the enhanced camera quality with the enhanced details, and the photo quality was better as compared to the previous versions of the phone. And if country of origin of the phones is a factor for Indian consumers, because we as Indian consumers don't prefer the Chinese product because we don't have much over the trust over these products. Thank you.
Thank you. And which sites did your group look at?
Amazon India.
Okay, good. Which group would like to go next? Please.
So to answer these questions, what we did, our group has gone through the reviews of, we preferred YouTube, Flipkart and Amazon. So in terms of the Indian influencers, what they think of the Realme Pro smartphones, first thing, they found it cheap. It's very affordable for them to buy it as compared to other phones. because other phones, Samsung S24 is around 50K and iPhone is around 1 lakh or something. So yeah, that was one point. And what Indian consumers are thinking of these smartphones, first of all, out of all these three, iPhone wins over here because they are saying it's more natural, it's more reliable, it's the unique features which they always bring are a good usage for them. And also, although EMI options are available in all those things, but if you compare the price, in that, in terms of attributes, iPhone is better than others. And also, there are mixed opinions about other phones compared to iPhone. The heating issues that they have highlighted in Realme 14 Pro. And we were not able to find the country of origin as a major factor, although some of them are highlighting because of the Chinese brand and others are Korean and US brand. So they are not preferring much for the Chinese brand because of the things, it will not be reliable further. So that's what we found out till now. Thank you so much.
And the three sites, I think those pictures and going to a single site, so good job. Last group, where are you? Just one more group. Okay.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone. So, regarding the first question, we found that influencers and consumers both are basically very much influenced by SRK being the brand ambassador of Realme 14 Pro because he is one of the crowd puller in India. So yes, it does have a great impact on influencers and consumers regarding how they think about the phone. Influencers think that it's a great phone in this price segment with various colors and great performance. And so does the consumers think of this phone because of this style, because of the camera, because of its performance, design and IP69 rating. They found that this is a great phone in this price segment of 20 to 30,000. Then regarding iPhone 16, consumers think that pros of the iPhone 16 is its battery life, its powerful processor, its camera which has been enhanced in this version, then audio mix and thermal management. The cons are still design and AI features which are basically being provided by its competitors like Samsung. Then we couldn't get the answer of fourth question because of the time constraints. And then fifth, we think that India is a price sensitive market, so it doesn't matter much about regarding the country of origin. It was once when Indian consumers were thinking of boycotting Chinese products, but eventually we don't see any downfall in sales of Chinese mobile phones like OnePlus, Realme or MI. So we don't think that it is really a matter. It is a price sensitive market still, and it would be for now.
Great, thank you very much. Not bad for 10 minutes, and so you can imagine what you get with a deeper ethnography, and hopefully this just whets your appetite for the project that your group is deciding on, and hopefully you have a research question in mind that you're beginning to narrow down to. A couple more slides left. What was, we could look at comparison of phone comments to mentions of Obani, mentions of cricket, and so forth, just to put things in perspective. How much do we see in terms of comments online having to do with phones? That we looked at, that's the same slide we looked at before. No, I guess it isn't. Smaller numbers, greater details, subjective, context-specific, and cultural. I think we looked at that. Actually, we had the same slide before, didn't we? So that's all I planned for today anyhow, so it's a propitious starting point. Thank you for the exercise, some interesting findings, and maybe that's stimulated your group and suggested some ideas of what you might have as a topic. And ethnography, as I think you experienced, can be productive. Any questions for today before we do break? Okay, my colleague